I want to start with the fact that I think most people who know Congressman Hern probably know you've been incredibly successful in the business world, business ventures that by some estimates are upwards of $100 million. By every measure of success, you've done very well. But it wasn't always that way for you. So I want to start by talking about your personal life. Before you were congressman, certainly you were not somebody who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. So let's start there.
Well, certainly, half America thinks that I was, but it's certainly not the case. And I think often we don't know the story behind the members of Congress up here, Democrat and Republican. But I believe I've really been a part of this thing called the American Dream, which is why I ran, by the way. It was to protect the opportunity of the American Dream. I grew up really poor in the Ozark Mountains of Arkansas. No running water, no indoor plumbing until I was in the 8th grade. And oldest of 4 other siblings, mother married a guy, didn't like to work. The story that you hear that you don't think anybody can achieve that, and that so many people in government think that we just got to go keep giving handouts. But I think our responsibility as a government is to be benevolent, help people get on their feet, get them started to experiment with this idea of having liberty and freedoms of a job, and go through and experiment this so that you can chase your American dream. There is no specific American dream. It's the idea of taking risks, getting knocked down, and doing this time and time again, and you will achieve American dream. And they're all different. They're not the same. I was never looking at getting in Congress or politics for that matter. And I got kind of drug into it by a guy at the time who was coming out of the House, a guy named Tom Coburn. And then when he ran for the Senate, I helped campaign with him, flew him all over the state of Oklahoma as a pilot, and sort of the rest is history.
So I just want to reiterate, for those that missed that, because you said it very quickly, you grew up in a house with no running water, no plumbing, and your family was receiving assistance, right? Yep. You are now a high-level member of the United States House of Representatives and worth more than $100 million. That is the prototypical American dream you're living it. So that is an amazing thing. And actually, can you explain your hamburger and fry cufflinks there? That's a part of your story too, right?
So, as I got an engineering degree, worked at Rockwell, wanted to be an astronaut, am a pilot, space shuttle blows up, a buddy of mine owns McDonald's in Little Rock, Arkansas. I said, I'd like to try this franchising program, and I started that in January of 1987, and worked 10 years to save $100,000 to get my first restaurant. Hog farming. No money down, reading books and tapes for 99 bucks to learn how to do no money down, buying properties and flipping properties. Wrote a software program, all the while doing about 80 hours a week in the McDonald's training program. My wife and I got our first restaurant in January of 97, sold it 2 years later, moved to Oklahoma, and went from those 2 to 24, thousands of employees over the years, got into banking, manufacturing, real estate development, technology companies, and 35 years in the restaurant business, working a lot, taking a lot of risk, and never asking a customer whether they were Democrat or Republican, and just working on service. And I think we should do more of that up here. We should work for America, not to oppose each other all the time.
Okay, I'm a fish fillet guy myself. So
they're great.
Let me know.
They're great.
So with that background and where you are now, how has that informed your politics, your views, the way you vote, the way you see the world?
So I ran on the idea. There were 6 of us in the race, and I'd been on TV a lot in the Tulsa air market because of McDonald's. And then we did a poll, and you sort of get your bubble burst. I had less than 1% name ID. And so that was a real challenge, thinking about how you're going to win a race if nobody even knows who you are. So you work passionately, feverishly. And I always said my slogan was Hern Works. I get up earlier. My team will attest to this. I'm the first one in the office. I left last night at 11 o'clock. I was the first one in the office this morning. And so I think work matters in America. I've been criticized by that. I've been called a racist because I think you should work by members on the Ways and Means Committee, quite frankly. I think there's nothing more humbling than working hard and experiencing failures. You learn more from your failures than you do your successes. And so I look at all this, and I ran on the idea that we should get limited government, get government out of the way of businesses so they can create jobs and put Americans to work. That's what President Trump's doing every single day. He's bringing businesses back to America. That's why it's such a populist. I think it is an American idea. You create jobs so people can work, not be dependent on the government. And we need to fix all these waterfalls, these cliffs where people, if they make $1 more which is the way you do this, that you lose $2 in benefits. We need to have a more of a smoothing out of these benefits. We need to help people, nudge them off the benefit programs. We shouldn't measure success by how many people we get on. We should measure success how many people we get off and get into a good paying job. That was the premise by how we had budget surpluses under Clinton and Newt Gingrich.
So let's talk about the One Big Beautiful Bill that passed here. It's I think, a good transition. This is a bill that, as a Ways and Means member, you got a front row seat to the tax part of. From the outside looking in, it seemed very smooth, no hiccups, no problems at all. I say that politely joking with you here. Were you happy ultimately with the final product that you ended up voting on that President Trump signed?
Very much so. I want to give a big shout out to Chairman Jason Smith. He was one of the first people, if not the very first person in Congress to advocate for one bill. He didn't call it the One Big Beautiful Bill. We'll give that credit to the president. But he had been here before. He knew how difficult it was to push things through. It was going to be real easy to get a border bill and a military bill that was advocated by many in Congress, House and Senate, and some in the White House. But he knew if we were going to get a tax bill, make the tax code permanent, the things that we got out of this bill, that was going to have to happen at one time. And time again, those in the media thought we'd never get it done. We got it done with funding the government. We got it done with the budget reconciliation language. We got it done with the final passage of the bill. But, you know, Chairman Smith, we all sort of sequestered in the Library of Congress, historic precedent being set, by the way, because that's where it all started. We started in the very same room that the 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act, a small room upstairs in the Library of Congress, symbolic, and then moved down to the members' room and spent literally hours upon hours debating every component of this. And you mentioned was absolutely satisfied. I was in the final product. Did I get everything I wanted? No, but nobody did. Not the president, not anybody in Congress, House, or Senate. And that's why it looked a little ugly at times.
So I don't need to remind you, but the Congressional Budget Office has projected more than $3 trillion in debt added because of it. Republicans, yourself, several people have said you're counting on revenue from the tax policy, you're counting on revenue from tariffs to offset that. And I'm wondering if you're taking a gamble by doing that, because we're not in the same economy that we were in 2017. Interest rates are different, the global markets are different, tariffs could potentially raise prices here. So when I hear Republicans making the case that last time we passed President Trump's tax bill, we earned revenue for the government, is it a gamble to bet on that this time to offset $3 trillion potentially added to our debt?
Well, you look at the new additional tax brackets or breaks, if you will. They were given to blue-collar workers. No tax on tip, no tax on overtime, giving a bonus deduction for seniors. Under reconciliation, you can't effectuate change to the Social Security rate, so you have to do it another way, and we did it through giving a bonus deduction. But you also have to look at this in a sense that if I ask every person in America, if you didn't know I was in Congress, and I ask you this question, do you really think that by allowing you to keep dollars in your pocket, that the CBO scores that as a deficit? The reason it's a deficit is because members of Congress don't cut the commensurate spending that was associated with giving those monies back or leaving those monies in your pocket. So you can't do both. I've given analogies. If you're a business owner and you give somebody $1,000 a month for expenses, a car, and then you say, well, I'm going to not do, I think I should give you a car, and you equate that to $1,000, but I don't take the $1,000 back. I've double spent on something that you're getting a double benefit for. And we as American people, we want all of our taxpayer dollars back, Democrat or Republican. Democrats tried to raise taxes, and they couldn't do it either, even on the wealthiest. Elizabeth Warren, you look at what happened to Wyden. Look what happened just recently with trying to put this special tax on uber wealthy people. It doesn't happen. People don't want to raise taxes on anybody.
So what you're saying is you think that this is going to effectively pay for itself, that we're not going to be left.
$2.5 trillion of the $3 trillion they're referencing is keeping everybody's marginal rates the same, not raising your taxes. So by you keeping your money in your pocket, the CBO says that's going to cost $2.5 trillion. So we have to look now at spending. That's what President Trump is doing, and he's getting fought every step of the way. But we have to look at spending. We're going to vote on a rescission bill today or tomorrow, see where it comes in at. But we're talking at a $2 trillion deficits, we are having cardiac arrest over $9 billion. We have got to really get under this idea that we've got to cut spending.
So I want to move to something that I know you guys are getting slammed on, and that's the rural hospital piece of this. That was something that we've heard quite a bit concern about. And not just from Democrats. There were several Republicans that raised concern. So in Oklahoma, the Oklahoma Hospital Association says you've got 90 rural hospitals, 40 of which are critical access hospitals that service 66 counties. I've never been a math guy, but I think that means that there are several counties with just one hospital servicing the whole county. Do you have any concerns that the Medicaid cuts potentially could hamper, if not close, some of the hospitals that your folks have to rely on?
Yeah, but what nobody's talking about, reporting on, is how much Obamacare destroyed the rural hospital market. How about physicians not being able to own rural hospitals? How about we change that so that people that are in there for a business acumen that want to go in there and work every single day and figure out how to provide services to that part of rural America? I grew up in the Ozark Mountains of Arkansas, as I described. My doc was a country doc who was our clearinghouse for all other docs. And so, this isn't going to be what kills the rural hospitals. There's going to be a lot of demagoguing about this. But a lot of these cuts of Medicaid or work requirements and others don't even go into effect until 2027.
Yeah, but when they do, the concern is people may end up getting lost in the red tape. They may end up missing an appointment, and for the next 6 months, they potentially lose their health care, their Medicaid. Does that pose a risk to your hospital?
Well, you're also getting the one big beautiful bill, as you alluded to, with additional tax cuts going to those who need it most at the lower end of the income scale, the middle income people. There's additional bonus deductions in there for that as well. You're seeing jobs being created, the deregulatory environment the president's putting in place. All these things are going to attribute, and that's why this longer period of time. What you're seeing right now was reported just yesterday or day before. A rural hospital closed in Wyoming and blamed the one big beautiful bill that hasn't even been enacted yet. So we're going to see a lot of these things go on to be used by the liberal press to show, oh, they're just destroying America. Not true, won't happen, and we need to move forward.
Okay, and I want just one more piece about the bill. That's the SNAP benefits, the food stamp benefits here. So the bill sort of changes the way the federal government and the state governments fund this thing. It's going to put more of the burden, more of the onus on states. And some have predicted that might end up forcing states to cancel benefits for certain populations. Given the background we talked about, we started off your background and the fact that I think at one point in your life, your family relied on food stamps as well.
All the way until I left home, as a junior in high school.
So I'm just wondering if that background gave you any pause. Is there another future congressman, entrepreneur out there who's a kid right now in a really tough situation? Do you worry that families might end up losing the benefits that you benefit?
Yeah, so our whole premise behind SNAP is the able-bodied Americans that could work. This is back under President Clinton days, from Arkansas, by the way, and grew up in Hope, Arkansas, a very rural part of Arkansas. Is the idea, if you can work, you should go to work. Put it in perspective, back then, the able-bodied Americans that should be able to work in 97, 8, 9, 10, or 20, 2000, was about 3.5% of them were not working. Today, it's over 10%. The CBO, using their numbers, and they either get it right or wrong or somewhere in the middle, they estimate it's almost 5 million people today in America that fit in that category. And one of the outside groups up in D.C. have done time studies on it. The number one thing that these people do that are sitting on the couch or whatever, have no dependents or able-bodied, number one thing is watch TV. Second thing is watch digital programs. So maybe they're watching this.
Hopefully NewsNation.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So it's a very popular, even Democrats, not to the tune of Republicans, even Democrats think that if you're getting benefits and you're able to work, you should work. Oklahoma, you mentioned some of the other components of this. Oklahoma, over the last 2 years, Cindy Byrd, the auditor there, has done audits on recipients of SNAP and found that there's an egregious abuse of signing up for SNAP that never gets investigated. Monies are taking away from those who really need them. Yeah. So as I said from the beginning, the American government, the federal government, should help those who need help. This will preserve it. As we look at these other programs, we're going to have to do the same kind of work.
All right. Less than a minute left. Security is going to kick me out here when the time runs out. I just got one more quick one for you, if we could. And that is, from the outside looking in right now, people look at Congress, and I think what they see is partisan divide everywhere. Is it, from the inside, as bad as it looks from the outside?
Absolutely not. I could tell you funny stories that you know, myself and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has done, you know, she thinks she's done for me against some of my conservative friends back home that have tried to give me a hard time about things. We've had a lot of fun. There are a lot of camaraderie, working together behind the scenes, but when you put a microphone or a TV camera in front of somebody's face, they want to put on a show for, and it goes on both sides of the aisle, by the way. But, you know, Brad Schneider in Illinois, Jimmy Panetta in California, and so many others. Richie Neal's a great friend. I mean, these are folks that they get it, but they also, because the base demands it, their base, our base, demands that we stand up and fight. Fight, fight, fight.
Well, at NewsNation, we're going to try to highlight more for you guys working together.
You guys are doing a great job. This is fantastic.
Thank you so much, Congressman. I really appreciate your time.